moving forward, let's get to our fourth general topic, and I think this is a pretty good one. We came up with 5 coaches that are on the hot seat heading into this season. And we got 5 names listed that we think are under the most pressure. And I think for me, I'm going to start off with the Miami Dolphins, Ryan Philbin. The Dolphins are seemingly stuck in a 500 rut. I think it's key to note that the Dolphins are under a new general manager, so I think Philbin has to make an impression this year. And to tell you what, I think Philbin's gone this year if the Miami Dolphins don't make the playoffs. That's how much pressure I think he's under.
Yeah, and the Miami Dolphins job is a tough job to have because obviously been a tough division for years because your New England Patriots have been such a tough team to get over that hump. You know, every year the Patriots are going to be there for the division, and it's not getting any easier with the Bill. The Patriots are kind of declining. They're more declining than they are improving, and you can agree with me on that thing.
I agree 100% on that. Yep.
But the Bills are getting better. The Bills are getting better, and the Jets are going to be there. Their defense is good enough to at least worry about it when they're on the schedule. So the Dolphins' job is tough, and I agree with you. I think Philbin, if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think it's simple enough. They're going to get rid of them.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
This obviously the incident last year with
Richie Incognito and
with
Josh
Incognito and the bullying. I mean, that was rough, and people were saying that he was going to get fired after this past season. So he's definitely on the hot seat. I agree with you, Johnny. But the guy who I have, one of the guys who I have, and I think it's a really interesting story, is Mike Smith in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy who seemed to have everything figured out, and he had Matt Ryan, and Matt Ryan had this record in the dome. It was they weren't losing any home games. They were making it to the playoffs. They were set. He was the coach when Mike Vick was on the Falcons, correct?
Yes, he was.
So he's been there and he's proven himself. And then all of a sudden last year, something happened where they just lost every game. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL. I feel like if Mike Smith doesn't fix this quick, I think he's kind of overstayed his welcome in Atlanta.
I think so as well. The Falcons went 4-12 last year, and granted, injuries had a lot to do with why they struggled. Julio Jones was out for the year after an early season injury, and that obviously affected them. But I mean, reading articles on him, I think a great thing I found out: Mike Smith is only 1-4 in the playoffs. He's only 1-4, and he's had talented teams, and he hasn't been able to get past that first round. And I think it's very interesting to point that out. I mean, for me, I've always seen him as a play-it-safe kind of coach. I don't see him taking big risks, kind of like a Les Miles would do at LSU, like taking big risks, big chances. Granted, Les Miles is college, and it's a different element. But I think he's kind of too play-it-safe for me, so I agree with you. Unless they do well this season, say maybe get double-digit wins, I think, and make the playoffs, I think that he's in trouble.
Yeah, it's tough. Who else you got for us, Stanko?
I mean, I'm gonna stick in the AFC East. Rex Ryan of the New York Jets. We seemingly talk about him every year that he's on the hot seat. And I think this year you have to talk about him. You have to talk about it again. The first 2 years he brought the Jets to the AFC Championship game. But Rex Ryan after that is only 22-26, a career record with the Jets following his first 2 seasons. And I think the fact that he's solely a defensive-minded coach has really hurt him. So I want to get your take on that and Rex Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Rex every year, and I don't think the Jets really helped themselves last year because we were having this conversation last year about Rex, and he kind of did what he needed to do. They ended up going 8-8, and it was announced that he was going to stay on, but they didn't give him a contract extension. They just gave him another year. So what it did was just to prolong their decision on whether they were going to keep him long term or not, which doesn't help anything. It's going to be the same circus every game as it was last year. If they lose a game, they're going to be like, oh, should we get rid of Rex? This isn't helping the Jets at all. Having either sign the guy long term or get rid of him. I don't think this kind of lingering is helpful for the Jets because, I mean, I hate to say it because I really don't like the guy, but players like to play for this guy.
Oh,
so,
they love playing for him, yeah.
There's something about Rex that want players to come to the Jets, so I think that's why they're keeping him. But if he, misses the playoffs again, and they win 7 games, which is really possible, it's going to be hard to kind of back up Rex Ryan because he really has nothing to show for it recently.
Yeah, I mean, when Rex Ryan's time at the Jets, I don't think their offense I would consider ever as dangerous. Mark Sanchez, when they made the AFC Championship games, did his job. He didn't turn the ball over, and he did well. But you saw him decline as his career went with the Jets, and now he's playing pretty well for the Eagles in the preseason. You saw the Tim Tebow fiasco with New York. The offense was not clicking there at all, and you saw Geno Smith last year show flashes of being a good quality starting quarterback. But again, I wouldn't consider their offense last year as high class. Now, granted, this year they bring in Eric Decker, they bring in Chris Johnson. So they have weapons now for Geno Smith. So I think there's a chance for the Jets to make noise and possibly make a wild card run. But I think unless the Jets make the playoffs, as it seems with every on-the-seat coach, I don't think Rex Ryan's back.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. It really is. And like I said, in this New York market, it's a what have you done for me lately kind of business. And Rex, he's really banking on these 2 AFC championships because we haven't seen much from him since.
Yep.
But for me now, I mean, my next guy is just another guy who's been in the headlines and to a team that really can't stay out of the headlines because their owner is Jason Garrett of the Cowboys. This is another guy who every year you feel like is this dude going to be the coach? I mean,
yeah.
And I think the problem is because they really should have won the division last year. There's no doubt in my mind that it should have been the Cowboys, not the Eagles. But I think that's the problem. It's not like, it's Miami in Philbin because they have the Patriots. So Philbin can say, look, we can be as good as we want, but the Patriots are on a whole other level. With the Cowboys, they're right there. There's no dominant team in that division. That division's up for grabs has been up for grabs the past 3 seasons. There hasn't been a dominant squad. And nobody was really talking about the Eagles last year, and they kind of just won it because it wasn't that they were just good. It's because they weren't as bad as the way the Giants are playing or the Cowboys or the Redskins. So this is another year that this division is up for grabs, and I really think it's either going to be between the Cowboys or the Eagles again. And and I think the Eagles are better than they were last year, so I think it's the Eagles to lose. And if Jason Garrett can't get to the playoffs, it's going to be tough because they're still trying to break. They only have 1 playoff win, 1996, and I'm sure Jerry Jones hates when that stat gets brought up, but it's the truth.
Yeah. Since 2010, when Jason Garrett took over, he is 29-27 in 4 years with the Dallas Cowboys. He took over after Wade Phillips, who was fired after 4 years after going 34-22 and winning a playoff game. They fired Wade Phillips for that, yet Jason Garrett is still there. I don't know how that adds up.
Yeah, it's wacky in Dallas. It really is wacky in Dallas, and I really think Jason Garrett really might be on the outs. And if I'm a coach, you really got to be a certain type of person to want to coach in Dallas because it's just you have this owner breathing down your neck 24/7, and he's kind of a firecracker and just wants to do things for the splash in the media. And I think Jason Garrett's kind of going to feel that at the end of the season this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons why I think Jason Garrett gave him another year was because last year the defense was awful. And Jason Garrett got rid of Rob Ryan before the start of last season, so they didn't have Rob Ryan last year. Defense was terrible. I think Jason Garrett kind of acknowledged, like, hey, I made a mistake firing a good defensive coordinator because look what he did with New Orleans last year. They became a good defense. So now I think there's no excuses this year for Jason Garrett. It's playoffs or bust. And I don't see them making the playoffs. I don't even see them coming close, frankly. I have them maybe winning 6 games. I don't have them competing for the division, unlike you.
Really?
I think their defense might be one of the 5 worst in the NFL.
Let's hope so. Let's hope, Stanko.
Yeah. So there we go. And our 5th coach who's on the hot seat. It's a team that always has a coach on the hot seat recently. The Oakland Raiders and Dennis Allen. There's nothing much more to say here. For me, his seat is the hottest, if you will. He's 8-24 in 2 seasons at Oakland with identical 4-12 records each year. Frankly, I'm surprised he wasn't fired after last year, but he's back this year with a new quarterback in Matt Schaub. I think this was fairly straightforward. You got to win to stay there, and unless he wins maybe 7 games or 6 or improves the record at least marginally, I think he's getting the boot. Might be when the regular season's over.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just like a black hole. It really is. Just when you go to the Raiders, something happens, and they really are in a funk. And if you go there, they don't. First of all, they don't have the players, so it's tough. Yes, they have Matt Schaub, but then he just recently got hurt in the past day or so. And
did he? I did not know that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how severe it is, but I mean, just to think, yeah, he has a sore elbow. I mean, hopefully it's not anything bad, but that's kind of what it is. It's just there's something wrong with his elbow. But but there's also, this is a team that got Maurice Jones-Drew, correct? So maybe it might be at least it might be a fresh person to come in to kind of platoon with Darren McFadden, who has talent. He has talent, Darren McFadden. He proved to be one of the better running backs in the league, but he just can't stay healthy.
Yep. I have a trivia question for you. Name as many wide receivers on the Oakland Raiders as you possibly can.
Wide receivers on the Raiders. I mean, I think James Jones. Isn't James Jones a wide receiver now for the
James
for the
Jones?
Raiders?
Yep, that's one.
The only other guy who I can say is Greg Little.
Greg Little? Yes, he is a second one. You got two.
That's all I got.
You got two. I mean, I think other names that you'll recognize, Denarius Moore and Ron Streeter.
Okay. All right. I mean, I got two.
I mean, there's others on the depth chart, but I don't recognize any of their names. I recognize the 4 names that we mentioned. So I think their offense is going to be it might be improved with MJD to put on the goal line, and maybe Matt Schaub, a quarterback, will give them a little bit more. But I still think that they're going to be in for a really rough season. Granted, last year they played a lot of close games. Like they competed a lot. They lost a lot of close games, but they still lost. It doesn't go into the win column. So I think that talent is gone.
But I guess that's the thing, that if I'm Dennis Allen, that's what I try to sell. I mean, because the Raiders have been messed up for so long that it's not going to get fixed overnight. So if I'm Dennis Allen, I can say, look, I understand that we lost. And if they have almost the same type of season, maybe slightly better this year, you can say, look, we lost close games last year because we didn't have the talent, but I still made the team right there. And then we got back. We got some better players this year, and we had 2 more wins than last year. So at least you can show at least some type of progress, because the Raiders have been so bad. It's almost like, what do you want this guy to do? Because they've been so messed up for so long that there's only so much you can do in a couple years, and they do this circle of coaches that they do every 2 or 3 years to get a new coach, and you need a guy that you trust that you can have for 5 years. Unfortunately, that's kind of what you need to do to really show if there's going to be much progress. But if you keep getting these new coaches who try to input their own philosophies in these guys, you're always going to be in the transition. So I feel like the Raiders is such a tough job because you don't have the players, and fans don't have the patience, and neither do the owners.
Yeah, I think that right now the nickname for the Raiders is the Black Hole, and you said it earlier. That whoever goes there gets sucked into despair, and success does not follow them. So they need a savior of some sort, and I don't know who that could be.
Yeah, it's tough out there. It is tough out there in Oakland.